My name is Grant Brondike, and I would like to thank all of you for coming today and listening to my speech. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my climb on Mount Kilimanjaro. This past summer, I spent 18 days in Africa and climbed the highest freestanding mountain in the world. It's located in northern Tanzania, and like I said, it's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world, and it's also the tallest mountain in all of Africa. It stands at 19,341 feet, and it's known as the roof of Africa. The name Kilimanjaro comes from an ancient Swahili term meaning impossible journey. When we were hiking the mountain, our guide told us that the name Kilimanjaro comes from someone who was hiking the mountain long before, maybe about the 1890s, he said, and it was a group of guys who were hiking up the mountain, and one of the guys died and one of the guys got deathly ill, and so they came up with the name Kilimanjaro, which means impossible journey. The revenue from the mountain is what sustains the economy of Tanzania throughout the entire year. Tanzania is one of the wealthiest countries in all of Africa, and it's because of the tourism that comes to the mountain. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the preparation. I started preparing in 10th grade. That's 2 years before I left. I left the summer after my senior year. But before I could prepare physically, I had to prepare financially, and that was very difficult. I started sending out support letters 1 year before I left. And in that 1 year, I sent out over 100 support letters, and I raised about $7,000. A huge part of the preparation was the gear that was necessary to conquer this mountain. I had to have gear for all climate ranges. The climbing started in about 80 degrees and it ended up at about -20 degrees at the summit. And the hiking gear included things such as hiking boots, but not just like Walmart hiking boots. They had to be boots that were rated for that terrain, for that coldness, for everything, and they had to be boots that the guide said will make it to the top of the mountain. Trekking poles, those were crucial in the climb, especially when we were doing technical climbing. You could dig the trekking poles in to propel yourself upward so that you could get to the next level. Sleeping bags. Sleeping bags were huge because we had to sleep somewhere at night, and so we had to have sleeping bags. A backpack that was large enough to hold all of your stuff. You needed it to hold all of your food, extra jackets, and anything else that you would need throughout the day. So a big backpack was very necessary. We had to have specific gloves, thick gloves for the summit, and then thinner gloves for, like the 40-degree temperatures. And there was lots of other petty stuff, but those are just the main things. The gear in itself cost about $1,200, so you can tell how expensive this trip was and all. Now, a passport. Obviously, when you leave America, you have to have a passport. And, it's mandatory. You won't leave or come back without it. And I'd never had a passport before because I've never left America. So, in my case, I had to have a passport 3 months before I left for the trip. So, I got the passport in January so that I would have it by April so I could depart in June. Immunizations. Immunizations are kind of looked over when you're thinking of a trip like this. But anytime you go to a third world country, you have to have immunizations. The immunizations that I had to have personally were the typhoid fever vaccine and the yellow fever vaccine. And the typhoid was the most painful shot I've ever had in my life. And I also had to take malaria pills for 2 days before I left for the mountain, and then the entire 18 days that I was on the trip, and then also 7 days when I got back. So that was about 27 days worth of pills. The immunizations can be very expensive, so I would suggest going to your county health department because they most likely have the cheapest rates to get these. With the prescriptions that you have to get, I would say shop around to all the pharmacies that are in your area because one pharmacy quoted us $100 more than another one did. So they have very different prices, so just shop around. Now to the climb itself. The climb takes 7 days to complete. It's 5 days up and 2 days down. You start out in the rainforest and you end up on a glacier on top of the mountain. And for the hike, everyone is assigned a porter. And a porter is someone who carries your luggage up the mountain for you so that us, the tourists, don't have to. The porters are paid about $30 for the entire week. And for us as Americans, that's nothing. But to them, that's one of the best jobs you can have. Food and water consumption are crucial when you're over there. The people that did not eat at the meal times or that didn't have snacks were the people that got the most sick while we were on the climb. And water, especially water, because people always say, well, you need to drink more water. Well, over there, you have to drink water. That's the only thing that they have to drink, but also you have to have it so that you'll have energy to get up the mountain. The reason that the ascension hike took 5 days to complete was because we would hike up to a higher altitude, then hike back down and sleep so that we could get acclimated to the higher altitudes and temperatures and everything. The terrain of the mountain varied anywhere from muddy to very rocky soil. One of the days we had to climb up a cliff, and it was complete technical climbing, and as you can tell, that would be very rocky, and that was by far the scariest day of the climb. The hardest day of climbing was definitely the summit. We began the hike at midnight so that we would make it to the summit by about 5 or 6 a.m. for the sunrise. This hike was not only in the dark, but it was also the most steep and the longest day that we've been hiking. And also the altitude. We started the hike at about 18,000 feet. The summit hike took us 6 hours, and we reached the peak right at sunrise. Many people got very sick on the summit hike, and they were throwing up, or they just had very bad altitude sickness and had headaches. But the guides got everybody through that, and thankfully all 17 guys from our group made it to the summit. And it was a great experience just being up there right at the sunrise. So I would like to thank all of you for coming today and listening to my speech.